Hello and welcome back to Frizz and the Grizz. My name is Trudeau. As always, joined by my co-host, D. Frizz himself. Buddy, what's going on?
What is really good? Happy Monday, baby.
As always, happy Monday. Today is Monday, August 22nd. Man, rumors have it our guy Lamar, we were talking episode 1, give that man his money. And apparently they offered him some money. I think it was something around Kyler Murray numbers, 5 years, 250. But we were talking before the show. We think it's a little bit of a smokescreen.
Fake news, what people say in the past. It's a terrible contract. It's guaranteed. For me, I can tell you the reason why they haven't released the details is 250, barely any is going to be guaranteed. I'll put money
Mm-hmm.
on it saying that they're either going to have him have a ton of accomplishments, so they're going to have to hit a ton of incentives. Hey man, win the Super Bowl in the next 3 years. Not saying that they can't, but they're far away from that when it comes to his offensive weapons. So you definitely can't expect him to win a Super Bowl. They're gonna say, don't rush as much. Try not to miss as many games. That's Injuries is definitely gonna be an
Mm-hmm.
incentive. Games played and whatnot. And I can tell you the reason why he's not accepting any of this is because it's guaranteed money. That's at the end of the day, he knows what his actual worth is, and you can fluff it all up by saying it's $250 million. Like, oh my goodness, he'd be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. If it's not guaranteed, it really doesn't matter.
Especially in football, man, that sport is so damn violent. And the way he plays, he's got to get that bag secured. I don't blame him. And you know what? This leak is definitely coming from the Ravens because they want
Oh,
to put that PR out there that they're giving him the money and he's
we
being
tried.
selfish.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those moves. So hold out, Lamar, man. Keep holding strong, buddy. They're gonna cave eventually.
You
We have
say
a fun
that.
show for you guys today.
Yes, sir.
We actually are not going to go deviate a little bit from the norm. I'll get to the topic in a minute. This is going to be like a special episode. We focus on one thing, but first, we really appreciate y'all watching and listening. We just want to ask you for some help. If you're a listener to the podcast, check out our Twitch page. You can watch us live. You can participate in the conversation. The Twitch that we actually stream on, it's D_Frizz5. So DFRIZZY_ with 2 Z's, like Goose.
Two Z's and Frizz, like two O's and Goose. For all you
And
New
that's
Englanders, you know
Frizz,
what
like
that's from.
FRIZZ5. So check us out on Twitch. Follow that channel. That way you can have your comments part of the show. We can interact with y'all. And for Darian, what do you got to tell for the live viewers that are watching right now?
Yep, for live viewers, that was basically what you just said for the streaming. But again, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. For anybody that's going to catch us the day after, definitely catch the Apple Podcast, catch it on Spotify. Like that's where we really want you guys to listen in. We understand people they can drive home after work and try to tune into us live while you're seeing the video, but it's a lot easier for some people to listen to it the next day, especially if you got a lot going on. You commute into work, workout, at the gym or something like that. So definitely take advantage of all platforms that we're promoting on.
For sure, for sure. And we want to be here for you, the listener, the viewer. So please, we ask you one thing, just follow those channels so we know you're there. We know you're listening. All right, let's get to the topic of the day. Shall we introduce us the right way? That's right. It's the Frizz and the Grizz Fantasy Football Special. In studio, Trudeau and the Frizz himself, breaking down fantasy action for you all night. All right, so we're going to do this in a very particular way. The way we're going to do this is we're taking the draft. We have an ADP sheet in front of us. We're both working off the same sheet. For those uninitiated, ADP basically is the average draft position. So we're not going off the rankings, but rather how people have been drafting. We're going to break down, kind of find some weaknesses, some places where you can find value in the draft. We have 3 sections. The first section's around 1 through 4. Second section's like I think 5 through 8, and then the last section we have 9 and below. So that's how we're going to do this today. We're starting in section 1. Darian, what is your philosophy approaching the draft? Are you coming into the draft with a particular order in which you want to draft position? So like I got to get 2 running backs, I got to go running back, wide receiver, whatever. Or do you just kind of do whatever and just let the draft board take you where it may?
It's all about the slot that you get picked at. That's for me. So like my entire philosophy, or at least like way of choosing where I'm gonna pick, how I'm gonna pick my players, is the number that I get selected. So like if I'm higher up in the draft, I have to go one way. If I'm lower in the draft, I have to think of a completely different end of it. It also depends on how many people. So I'm in 3 leagues. Each of them has different amount of people in those leagues. One of them is 12, one of them is 10, and one of them is 8. And that's literally like the best numbers to have because you have different, obviously, positions for draft. But I'm definitely thinking about it whenever whatever number pick I am is how I'm gonna like cater towards like who I'm gonna be selecting, obviously, or how I'm gonna be selecting later in the drafts. Because first round is moot point. You're usually gonna see the same 10 people go, maybe 12 people, depending on the format. But it's when you get to like rounds 5, 6, and 7 that order actually matters because you got to see who's gonna be left over when everything swings.
Do you care? Do you have a preference of being in the middle or the ends? Because some people like to be the end and go back to back, or be kind of in the middle and spread out their picks. I prefer to be in the middle because I hate waiting 20 minutes while Jim debates the 5th and 6th quarterback for 5 minutes. But I know some people like to be at the end and just go and stack it.
Quarter is like the sweet spot for me. So if there's 10 people right between 2 and 3, if there's 12 people between 3 and 4, if there's 8, if you get the second pick, cool. But that's like my area that I think is like best for me picking wise is right around that like 2 through 4, we'll say area, depending on the size of the league.
I will say, like, as far as draft strategy, not one strategy fits all. It's not one size fits all, right? Because my first word of advice to any fantasy player is know the rules, right? Know what the scoring system is, know what the rules are for your league because it can vary differently, greatly, depending on the rules. So, for example, not all quarterbacks are created equal. Some leagues try to dampen the quarterback power because quarterbacks on average can put up 3, maybe 4 touchdowns a game, a good one. And that's greatly different than what a running back or wide receiver can do. So some leagues actually say 3 points for a passing touchdown, 6 for a rushing. So for example, if that's your league, a guy like Lamar Jackson who's going to get rushing touchdowns and rushing yards is far more valuable than just a pocket passer. So my first word of advice to any fantasy player is understand the league rules, understand where you can find your advantages. And the same thing goes for PPR, right? Are you no PPR, half PPR, full PPR? That's greatly going to change how you draft players, what type of running backs you might draft. If you go full PPR, maybe you want a slot receiver over, a big play, big threat receiver. You want to rack up those catches. If you have no PPR, Jamar Chase might be your guy, right? Because he's going to just have big plays, probably not as many catches as maybe like a Jalen Waddle in the draft. So first rule of advice or word of advice is just know the rules and understand how that can, benefit yourself. You have any other general like philosophies that you have for the people before we get into the actual draft itself?
I think you hit it on the head with saying knowing the rules. More importantly, it's like don't think that just the way that you draft in one league is going to help you out in the other league. Because I've fallen victim to that, thinking that the way that you can draft in one specific league should cater the same results in the other. It really is so random because of how everybody else is selecting. You obviously got to put your best foot forward with your team. But I'm in one league where I've won championship, 3 out of 4 times. I'm in another league where I'm finishing last place every single time. So it's like, and it's the same players. Like you're still selecting from the same player pool, but like you said, it's knowing the rules that's important, and just knowing that like just because you're able to get somebody in one round in one league doesn't mean that's going to be the best fit for you in a different league. It definitely changes.
And don't draft any kickers or defenses, please.
We don't even have kickers in one of my leagues. It's actually dope. Big shouts to one of the guys up in New England. No kickers to flex. It's actually pretty deep because it makes it harder for your bench.
Is it another thing is like know what your flex situation is as well? Are you a standard flex? Do you have super flex? Obviously, if you're running a super flex, you can start 2 quarterbacks, which then everyone always says, everyone says like, hey, my first experience doing super flex was last year, so I didn't know how to approach it. And everyone's always like, all right, wait on quarterback. And I traditionally wait and just kind of see what falls to me. I usually take like the 5th or 6th best quarterback available. Super flex, it's a very aggressive league on quarterbacks. So if you don't jump early on quarterbacks, forget it. You are going to be stuck with the bottom of the barrel. All right, so let's get into this. So rounds, we'll start with the first 2 rounds. And for me, the top of the draft is this. Don't fuck it up because you're not going to win your league in the first 2 rounds. Like, okay, yeah, you could draft like the 2 guys who have the best output, but you absolutely can lose, your league in the first 2 picks.
Yep.
So for me, the first 2 rounds, I'm taking guys that are risk adverse. I want guys I can feel comfortable with that won't just derail my season. And I also want to make sure that I've done a few mock drafts to understand, all right, if I draft running back, does that screw up the rest of my draft? Or do if I go wide receiver, is the rest of my draft going to be screwed up? So like the first 2 picks are very important just to make sure you set yourself up for success in the later rounds where you can find a lot of value.
Though that for me, I'm injuries. I know you kind of harped on that. Injuries, potential injuries with workload, like CMC. I don't want to give away the nuggets, but like that's one of them. I'm also thinking of how their offense is actually catered from what they did in the offseason. So like, did somebody's value go up because of somebody else that they picked up? Another nugget, wide receiver from Philadelphia, not AJ Brown, but the kid out of Devontae Smith. Like his value goes through the roof again because of somebody else that they brought in. Not that he did anything different. He's obviously a really good rookie wide receiver last year, but because the Eagles made a certain move to bring in somebody that's going to help their offense, it's going to benefit him. So like for me at least, that's like that. That's what I meant by it. Like, you think of like off-season moves that don't even involve the player that you're picking. It involves the team that they're on.
Yeah, I mean, for me, some moves like that though aren't always a positive. I think of it almost partially in like a basketball sense, where if you're playing basketball, there's only so much usage rate a player can get, right? And there's a term in fantasy football and in football called target share. Essentially, it's like what percentage of the passing plays is the quarterback looking your way, at least make an attempt to throw you the ball. So like the more talent you have around you, your target share is going to take a hit. But in the same sense, if you have no help around you, you're going to get double teamed. And it's going to be hard for you to succeed. So it's like there's got to be a sweet zone where like you have a little bit of help, right? But you're not on an island, and that's kind of like where you find the most fantasy success. I think a case against that would be maybe like Jamar Chase last year, where they're loaded at wide receivers, at the Bengals. So like he's a case study for maybe there is benefit in having riches beyond belief.
Mm-hmm. Same thing with I mean, for me, you would also think of addition by subtraction. So somebody that like was on your team and now they're gone, you would think that like, oh, that means that they're gonna obviously get more targets, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. My biggest example is out in Dallas. I think people that are thinking of somebody like a CD Lamb, I think that's I think that's actually gonna hurt him because of someone like Amari Cooper is gone. Like,
Yeah.
we can dive into
Well, let's dive into this. So we talked about a lot of things, and a lot of it revolves around these first couple rounds. So the first big hot topic thing is like who to go number one. I've seen 2 names thrown at number 1, and I have my preference. And I've done at least like 6 fantasy drafts in the past 2 days, and I've seen a trend. So the 2 players at the top of the draft have been Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey. And you alluded to it earlier, and I did as well. It's like I want to be as much risk adverse, especially with the number 1 overall pick, right? I don't want to draft a player who I can't count on being there. And we've seen time and time again, Christian McCaffrey is injured, right?
Yeah, it's like it's different injuries too, which is the problem for him. It's not like a lingering injury where just like, all right, well, like he finally had the surgery, he got it taken care of, he's done. It's like hamstring 1 year, ACL the next year, PCL the next year, different legs. It's like he loses his explosiveness the more that this continues to happen. And Panthers are obviously bringing in help for it. I'm pretty sure they drafted a running back because of that.
Yeah, I think did they have Chuba Hubbard last year? Is he still there?
Yep,
He
still
is.
as a backup.
He was a very good backup. So for me, I think Jonathan Taylor, easy number 1. And then you have to go. I mean, is there a case for Christian McCaffrey not going to? For me, like because his ceiling, he has probably the highest ceiling in fantasy, right? So like it's hard for me to say I'm passing up on him at number 2. But is there a case for anyone else in your opinion to go above him?
Derrick Henry. And this is though. So we talk about all the injuries and like workload and whatnot. Derrick Henry is an anomaly. He is a freakish athlete that everybody says that the wheels are going to fall off. He got 300 carries in Alabama per year. He got 300 carries in Tennessee every year. And it took some freak accident for him to get injured last year, and he still had the ability to come back. Like that's just a freight train for the next, I would say 3 years based off of the way that he's being used. That if he's there at 2, I'm taking him. I think he's not the offense in Tennessee where like they have to give it to him every single play. He can literally rip off 3-yard, 4-yard runs every play or break out for a 90-yard touchdown.
Mhm.
You really have no idea what you're getting because nobody wants to fucking tackle him.
So I'm not as high on Derrick Henry maybe as you are. I think you go McCaffrey too. I was looking earlier about Derrick Henry. I was curious how old he was because I'm like, this guy feels like he's been in the league forever. So he's actually like an old 30, 29. He's an old 29. Like he turns 30 during the football season. So he has a ton of carries. He has a very bruising style of running, and I just feel like there's always like this hill for running backs, and it's about that 30 to 32-year-old age. So like he's entering that danger zone, and I'm worried that if I'm drafting Henry at number 2, could this be the year like he starts to break down a little bit? And also, this Tennessee offense, they have lost some pieces of wide receiver. You mentioned AJ Brown leaving earlier to go to the Eagles. Julio Jones now a Buck, so they are a little depleted offensively around him. I'm wondering if he might see more 8-man blocks this year, considering his production when he was healthy. So we'll see. I still think Derrick Henry is probably a top 4 to 6 pick in the draft. Is there anyone else so we're looking at the same board? Is there anyone else at this top 4 that you want to talk about? So we have ADP goes Jonathan Taylor. Derrick Henry actually is ADP 2, but he's kind of like a tie with Christian McCaffrey. So people have been flip-flopping between those two. And then Dalvin Cook has been averaging at number 4 pick. So is there anyone else worth mentioning there? I guess Dalvin Cook.
In the 4, no. Cook and Christian are kind of interchangeable. They go through the same issues. Love Dalvin Cook when he's healthy. Absolutely incredible athlete and explosive running back. But he's the same thing. Like there's an asterisk with Dalvin because when you pick Dalvin, you have to have Madison. Like it's just known for the past 3 or 4 years, you're going to get incredible value when Cook is out there. But if you don't have Madison, you're screwed because he's going to go down. I don't like to say people are going to get hurt, but like it's once or twice. All right, maybe it just doesn't happen again. But when it's consistent every single year, it's like, all right, it's a pattern.
Yep. So then after these 4 running backs, it looks like the ADP goes wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver, and Kupp, Jefferson, and Chase. And that's fine. I will say this, so I did a bunch of mock drafts today. When I went and picked one of these guys as my first overall pick, it gets pretty tough at the running back position. Like, in my opinion, it's if you're drafting 1 through 6, I would lean towards a running back at one of those spots. And then if one of those 3 guys that you like falls to you at maybe 7, hell, if you're at 10 and one of those guys fall to you, go for it. Like, don't reach on a shitty running back. Yep. But I would probably take, and I appreciate Ty in the stream, I would probably take Eckler. I know like a lot of the fantasy experts are high on him, and he's actually going around 9. I really like Najee Harris this year. I don't know if I would draft him as high as Ty is suggesting it too, but Najee had a very, very good rookie year. I think he had something like 1,200 rushing yards, 300 receiving yards, and that's with Ben Roethlisberger at the helm. So anything's better than Big Ben at quarterback. So I could see Najee replicating last year and potentially maybe having an increase in some of those stats. He's been phenomenal. So yeah, I think for me, Eckler, maybe Najee at 6. And then at 7, if you want to go Kupp, he had such a great season last year. He had like historic season for wide receiver. I don't see why not go Kupp 7. And again, if you're a guy who likes Cooper Kupp or a gal who likes Cooper Kupp and you want to draft him earlier, that's fine. I just find from experience for me doing a lot of mock drafts, if I passed on a running back in the first round, it does get dicey. I mean, you can roll the dice with like your 3rd and 4th round pick and get like a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but you don't feel good if that's like a guy you have to rely on every week. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's your RB1. That's where it's tough. And same here. And again, like the new grain in which a lot of people are putting online and whatnot is wide receiver is the new running back, meaning that like your heavy hitters, Kupp, Jefferson, and Chase. Like once those guys are gone, that there's a huge drop off between wide receiver 1s and wide receiver 2s on teams. I don't see it, I'm
I don't
no, I'm
see it
not
either.
agreeing with it. I'm not agreeing with it. I don't see it. I still think it's a running back fantasy football heavy league because once you're past those top 8 backs, you are in some
Yeah,
trouble when it comes to trusting people. Like, not even just like target share, like if they're even going to be on the field, because majority of those teams are running 2 back systems. Like
that's the thing.
that's when it becomes an issue when you're, like you said, a CE, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like
He's in
they're
this
the
timeshare.
Chiefs always, yeah, the Chiefs always have a
Yeah.
second running back. So it's like
Even
that's
I
the
would say
tough part.
even some guys that are projected in the first round are likely in a timeshare. Like I'm seeing Nick Chubb somewhere around 8 to 10 range, and Kareem Hunt is a very good running back despite his grievances with the Browns. You know, he's going to lose carries to Kareem Hunt. There are guys in this top range that are going to give carries to their backup. It's very rare to find the bell cow running back, and if you can get one of these guys, you can absolutely count on as like an anchor for your team in the first round. That's great. And I like that term. I've heard that a lot in fantasy recently. It's a new term, is like the anchor running back.
Hmm.
And the idea is like you have one stud guy you can count on every week, and then you can figure out your RB2 situation and maybe plug and play.
Yeah,
Um,
the if you just list off, and we'll get to the names. We talked in pregame about some receivers in Pittsburgh, that like with the Najee Harris talk. So like how that's going to help him, obviously. But if you look at the next like second tier running backs for it, Javante is splitting with Melvin. You have Kamara, he's going to come off suspension, but he's splitting with Ingram.
is he act? Is he? So I was trying to look this up. He's not
It's
actively
there.
suspended, right?
No,
Because he had
it's
a
there.
battery
It's one of
charge.
those. Yeah, it's one of those situations where he could get. Who was it that running back from Dallas, Elliott,
Ezekiel
where he can
Elliott,
play in like week 10, he could get suspended. That's
right?
where it's like where it's up in the air right now.
Yeah.
But like that again, that's the timeshare with like those second tier. They're number ones on their team
I do
with
like
their
some of those
second tier
second tier
backs.
guys. Like I like
Yeah.
Joe Mixon. I think he's pretty much a lead dog there, and that's an
Hmm.
explosive offense. Alvin Kamara's been a fantasy dog for a long time. Uh, Aaron Jones, I'm not too high on him this year, but
So hit or miss. But yeah,
yeah,
we don't have to too
yeah.
deep with it. We can finish up the top 10.
But
But like
just a
that
last
was the
comment
running backs.
on the first round in the top 10. Like, so there's 4 wide receivers if you're in a 12 team league. One other thing I want to mention too is we talked about know your rules, right? It's a very different situation if you're in a 3 wide receiver or a 2 wide receiver league, right? If you're in a 3 wide receiver league, which I am, like there is a premium on getting some good wide receivers because you're gonna have to fill that roster out. So just keep that in mind. Like if you only need 2, then you can be a little more conservative. Of those top 3 though, like I do have concerns a little bit about Cooper. Like even these stud wide receivers, Cooper Cup, like there's no way in hell like he has the same season as last
Replicate.
year. There's regression, right? Jamar Chase, like I was a proud Jamar Chase fantasy like I rostered him last year.
The
He
best.
was so frustrating because there were weeks like he's going 7 overall. There were weeks where I sat him because he had dud, like 3 duds in a row.
Mhm.
So I know he had a fantastic postseason run in Super Bowl, and that might be why he's jumping to the top. But there are some red flags with all of these wide receivers at the top. And that's why I'm a little more comfortable taking one of these running backs and just waiting and seeing how the wide receivers shake out. Let's
Also, just a quick note on those two. Um, Wide receivers after a breakout year typically have lower stats the next
yeah.
year. So big breakout years, not just like they like if you look at Cooper Cup year to year, it was like increased every single year. Receptions, yards. I think he had a dip in touchdowns one year, but like it was increased every single year. And then
Yeah.
last year happened, meaning that was his breakout season, even when he had a consistent 4 years leading up to it. Same 3 years leading up to it. Same thing with like Chase. Like he's a rookie, but like he just did what he did
Mhm.
next year. It's going to be really hard to
Yeah.
replicate that. And the next receiver would be Justin Jefferson, where it's like he had a breakout rookie season,
Down and up.
and exactly the next season was great. He's still the best receiver in Minnesota, but there's your regression. Like
And
receivers, it happens like that.
I actually like Jefferson the most out of those 3 personally. And I don't want to get too caught up in the first round,
Mhm.
but they changed coaches in Minnesota, which theoretically the offense should improve. Mike Zimmer was a defensive coach, so we're thinking that this Minnesota team will be better next year, especially offensively. So I like Jefferson. And we're not saying like don't draft Jamar Chase. We're saying if there's a Dalvin Cook, maybe take Dalvin Cook first and wait a little bit. If Jamar Chase is available at 8, absolutely. But like don't. It might hurt you to reach for a wide receiver in the first round. All right,
top 5 at least.
Yeah. So the second round, we see the first tight end go off the board at pick 14 at Travis Kelce. Which, if we're gonna just talk about tight ends really quick, to me, there's 5 guys you want to roster, and one of them is I think is a tier lower. So for me, the 5 guys is Kelce, Andrews, Kyle Pitts, my guy in San Francisco, Kittle, and Waller. And for me, I'd probably put Pitts at the bottom of the 5, even though he's getting drafted in the third of all of those 5. So he's being drafted after Andrews. I just don't. I'm afraid of that offense there in Atlanta.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm uncertain about that. So I think Kelce at 14 in that area is a little too early. I after doing many mock drafts, I think you can get really, really good value at grabbing either Waller or Kittle. They're going around like the end of the 4th, early 5th. If you can get Kittle at like, round 5, pick 1 or 2, that's fantastic. And personally, I am not really gonna wait on tight end. I want one of those 5 because there's a significant drop off after that.
Oh yeah.
And if you don't get one of those 5, my advice to you, don't draft tight end number 6. Just wait it out at that point because you're going to be sifting through garbage at that point anyways. So just stack up your bench, take some flyers on some wide receivers and running backs. But other than Travis Kelce, in the second round, is anything sticking out to you? I know you're a big Saints fan, so I'm sure Alvin Kamara in the second round is probably enticing to you.
Huge. I like that area that he might drop to because of the lingering suspensions and whatnot. I know that you say you moved from Kelce, but I think there is huge value with Kelce being essentially like a wide receiver 1 because of what they lost in the offseason. Not only did they lose Tyreek, but Mecole Hardman just went down for the season. So like this is again, KC's going to get people open. That's just their offense. Mahomes is going to get the ball to Kelce because he's going to be the new Grunk. He's going to be his pacifier. He has to be. But I mean, the rest of the round, I think it goes. This is the drop off, right? When you say the second tier wide receivers or the second tier running backs. Diggs is still an incredible wide receiver. Not only is he great out there, but like what is it? Gabriel Davis emerged out of nowhere. So now like people have to worry about Davis, and Diggs is like Josh Allen as a quarterback improved tremendously with Stephon Diggs being his wide receiver. Like he made Kirk Cousins be really good, and Kirk Cousins is lucky that now he has Justin Jefferson's. So it's like he sticks around the league because of that. But like Diggs, I think is an incredible value if you say there's a drop off for like the receivers. I would say getting him high in the second round would be like a goal of mine. And then
I've actually seen him in a lot of drafts drop to like mid-second. So like it's definitely doable to get him in the early second. Even if you want to wait, if you have like pick number 6 in the second, there's a chance you probably get him. Because here's the thing, there's going to be people who take wide receiver in the first round, and they're going to be desperate to draft like your Ezekiel Elliott, your Saquon. So they might pass on the second go around on a guy like Diggs.
I think you just gave away the secret sauce that I was going for because, again, I hate it, but it's just the potential, the same way that you look at CMC, the potential is there for him to just come back and be the workhorse that we know he is, and that's Saquon Barkley. I hate that, like, every year it's just like, look, he's back. You see one move, he's just like, oh, he's back. And then it's like, boom, blown out ACL. And it's like, what the hell? So I think getting him later second round, top third round is a hell of a snatch for a running back. If you're looking for that RB2, RB1.5 area, if you can get him, say you take a Joe Mixon in the beginning of round 2, and then like you get a Saquon as the beginning or middle of round 3. I think that's a not bad value for him. I think this year he should be decent.
I've been burnt by Saquon, so I'll probably avoid him. I will say this about Saquon, and this is a weird rule of thumb, and I think there's a little something behind it. when guys are in contract years, I get a little extra excited about drafting them because usually guys will overperform in contract years. And the reason behind that is one, if you have like a lingering injury or like a little nagging injury, you're probably going to play through it because you need the stats to get that paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
Guys also probably come into the season in the best shape of their life because their conditioning to their livelihood their next contract is going to really depend on how good of shape you get into camp in. And three, we already know professional athletes may cheat here or there. So like you're more strongly incentivized to take something you're not supposed to in a contract year to get like a boost.
Get paid.
Exactly. So, and all these things being said, Saquon Barkley is entering a contract year, and he's been pretty unremarkable the past 2 years and 2.5 years. So he's probably looking to have a big bounce back year. I don't really love that New York offense, but I mean, if you're getting him at the end of the second round, it's worth a flyer, I suppose, right? Especially if you've already slid up. If you have a strong RB1, like you said, and have like, I don't know, like a Dalvin Cook, if you draft Saquon at the back half of the second round and he fizzles out, you still have your anchor running back, right? So, but if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you're not sunk.
That's what I mean by that. Like he can't be your running back one. You have to pair him with somebody that you've already drafted in the beginning of the first.
So my strategy going into fantasy drafts during this mock draft phase has been to try to go running back, wide receiver. That's been kind of like the most. I've experimented. I've gone running back, wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, running back. Personally, my favorite combination was going running back in the first round. And again, it's all dependent on where you end up. And then there are some wide receivers in the second round that are lingering, like they're getting drafted a little bit later that I really like. And one of these guys is Tyreek Hill. For some reason, people have been staying away from Tyreek Hill a lot. I understand there's a little bit of uncertainty leaving Patrick Mahomes in that very explosive offense. But there's one thing I know about the new coach in Miami is he's big on yak. Mike McDaniels, that's a tough name. He really wants to get the ball out quickly because Tua is not he's not a deep ball thrower. I do anticipate Tyreek Hill getting a lot of catches, a lot of stuff underneath, and he's super fast, super elusive. So he's going to get a lot of opportunity to get yards after the catch. So he's going end of the second round. So if you're a guy who maybe in the first top four have a McCaffrey, a Cook, Derrick Henry, you can pair him with Tyreek Hill at the back half of the second, like you're golden for the rest of your draft.
You also have to think of the style of offense that they're going to get him the ball, not just like you said, the quick screens, but those lateral front, like quick pitch passes. That's something that Mahomes like took advantage of, especially around the goal line. That's where it's huge, where like Tua can just take the snap, put him in motion before he gets the snap, catch it, toss it forward. Looks like it's a running play, but not only did you get a half a point for the PPR, you stack that with a 3-yard run, you stack that with a touchdown. All of a sudden, that's a 7.5, 8-point play from 3 yards out.
Is it crazy to say this? Maybe a hot take.
Ooh.
Does Tyreek Hill have a better supporting cast, minus the quarterback, as far as skill positions around him now in Miami than he did in Kansas City? I know he had Kelsey with him in Kansas City, but Mike Gesicki is a damn good tight end. And we just saw Jalen Waddle have a historic receiver season for a rookie. So, like, he might have a better supporting cast, and it's going to be hard to double team Tyreek Hill in this offense.
I won't say it's a better cast. I will say that for people thinking that it's going to be a slip in production, you're wrong. I think the dead wrong with that one. I think he might not, again, 60, 70-yard pass in the air, outrun everybody. That may not happen, but you know what will? Slant across the middle, because you can't, if he slants and Waddle goes, who the hell is covering them? You know what I'm saying? Or you send Mike down the middle, Gesicki down the middle, and you have these two cross. We're going to sit in zone? Good luck. You're going to go in man? Good luck. Like he is going to benefit greatly being in Miami because of who's opposite side of him. And that's Jalen Waddle and, like you said, Gesicki.
And you're probably going to lose some of the deep balls, but you'll more than make up with that, especially if you're in a PPR format with a lot of the underneath stuff. He's going to get a lot of catches this year. All right, let's try to get through this second round really quick. Is there anyone you don't like? I'll just throw out a name right now that I'm not super high on. Leonard Fournette is going like last pick of the second round. I'm just listen. You come into camp out of shape, first of all, and then this week alone, the Bucs started the offseason down 3 O linemen. They just lost 2 more O linemen interior. It's going to be really hard to run that ball, especially if the middle. Lenny's a bruising runner. He wants to go up the middle on these power plays. That interior line is going to be decimated. It's going to be hard for him to find running room. I'm a little bit out on Uncle Lenny. I mean, I would draft him later on in the draft, but in the second round, if I'm drafting a wide receiver in the first round and then I'm counting on Lenny as my number one, I'm not feeling good.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. You know, I know he's an LSU guy, so I'll try not to talk as much trash. But Leonard Williamson, Fournette, he's just not what I'm expecting anymore. I saw a picture of him in the offseason, like at camp. It's just like, come on, man. Like, I get it. You got your championship. Like, you used to be the most feared running back in the NFL. Like, we'll say coming out of college, you were one of the most feared running backs that played because of like how physical he was. He's not that anymore. Another name that, again, you said somebody's burned you. I've never physically drafted this guy on my team, but I just don't like the name. I don't like the team. I can't stand how he's being compared for having. You probably know who I'm talking about.
CD?
Yes. Can't stand. Look, this is my gripe with them because he is a phenomenal athlete. He's a freakish athlete. But we've been saying the same thing since Oklahoma. And for people that don't follow college football, same thing was when he had Marquise Brown on his team. Like, oh, CD is the guy. Marquise Brown was the guy. Like, now he gets to the NFL and it's like, oh, he's going to be the guy. Amari Cooper was the guy. And like, there were times where I'm pretty sure who's the wide receiver that tore his knee last year. I always want to say Terrence Williams, but there was another wide receiver for Dallas. I'm not a Dallas aficionado, but like there was another wide receiver for Dallas that outplayed him at points. And it's just like, he's a ghost at situations and he wants to wear number 88. So there's high expectations with being like Dez and being like Michael Irvin. To me, he's just not that. So comparisons of him being the next wide receiver, miss me on that, man. Like Dak tries to give him the ball. He still doesn't show up in certain games. So I don't like the high second round pick for him. Maybe you get him tail end a second and beginning a third as your second receiver. But if he's wide receiver one for your team, good luck.
All right. Let's wrap it for because we're dragging on this. I'm enjoying the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can't before our podcast. So we'll tap the rest of these first 4 rounds or like the first 4 rounds. What is 3 guys you like and don't like, and just kind of like, and this is not like personal. Basically, it's like you don't like based on the draft position. And I do want to say like another thing just to promote the wide receiver or running back wide receiver combination in the first 2. If you go, not 2 running backs, but go wide receiver, running back, when you hit round 3, you can go anywhere you want. You don't feel handcuffed. I got to get a wide receiver now. I have to get a running back. So just another thing to keep in mind if you split it up. All right. So for me, guys that I don't like going right now in like this 3rd to 4th round range, or I guess 2nd to 4th, I'm a little out on Zeke. I had him last year, and while he did have good number production, a lot of it was based on touchdowns. He had a tremendous, I think he had like 14 touchdowns. He gave up a lot of carries to their backup, and his name's eluding me right now. I hope you know.
I know, I can see his name. I just can't remember. My goodness.
Well, all right, well, I'll look it up. But he gave up a lot.
Nobody cares about Dallas. That's the reason why.
Oh, Tony Pollard, I think was
Tony Pollard. Yep.
Was their other running back. He gave up a lot of carries to Pollard, especially in late game situations. America's team, it's always on the damn 4:00 game, and I'd watch those games because I had interest in the games because I had obviously Ezekiel. He gave up a lot of carries. A lot of his production was touchdown based, so that's going to regress back to the mean. I don't really love him. He's going late 2nd. Kyle Pitts is, like I said earlier, he's going like one of the first picks of the 4th round. He's going ahead of guys like Waller and what's his face, George Kittle. Or he's going about that range. I just think with Mariota at quarterback and a lot of uncertainty with that offense, I just can't see him producing at a high level. And let me think. Anyone else I don't like? I just don't like in general. There's a lot of quarterbacks in this range going super high. Herbert and Josh Allen. Josh Allen's going like early 2nd. Herbert early 3rd. I think you can wait a little bit on those quarterbacks. So is there anyone you want to like particularly call out of this group of 1 through 4 that sticks out to you?
Love Cam Akers in the third. I think that's
People are
significant.
people are big on this guy this year.
So what he did again, the Adrian Peterson thing, like somebody tears the ACL and they play the next year, they think that like that's supposed to be the norm. He tore his Achilles and returned that same season. Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. It changed his entire career when he tore his Achilles. So it's like the fact that he came back, performed the way he did in the tail end of the playoffs and the Super Bowl last year, incredible. So I love that. If you can get him as your RB2 area
And
for this area, go ahead.
just one thing to add to Cam Akers is like McVay is kind of historically known as a coach who prefers to have a workhorse type of running back. Like once he gets a guy going, he will just keep feeding the beast. So if Akers has a good start, he could be a guy that's just eating up, 80% of the carries in LA and on an offense that's very, very dynamic.
Yep. Another name, another running back. Not technically a rookie, but first year, Travis Etienne, uh, one of the better running backs out of college football and out of Clemson, teaming up with obviously Trevor Lawrence. Jaguars offense is going to be different having Doug. Uh, my name's slipping me today, man. Monday
Doug
is terrible.
Peterson.
Doug Peterson. Different offense down there in Jacksonville. I think that's going to significantly help him. Not saying that like he's like going to be our RB1, RB2 finish at the end of the year, but if you're getting rookie running backs technically are a really good value. We saw in Najee Harris. This is his technical rookie season, even though it's year 2. Coming off of an injury, like this is the year that he could potentially, like again, get a ton of shares. We won't say carries, but carries and passes out of the backfield.
The one thing I am worried about with ETN is he's getting drafted rather high, right? So you're counting him on him as an RB2. And James Robinson, while he did have a fall off last year, it wasn't because he was a bad runner. Like he just wasn't getting volume. I don't know what he did to their clown coach. I don't know if he was the one who sold him out for dancing.
Urban Meyer, he's a
Yeah,
bum.
I don't know if he was one who put the Urban Meyer video online, but like he was getting in some games 5 carries. I still think he's a very good running back because in games where he got 15 plus carries, he got easily 100 yards. So I don't think it's a lock that ETN is going to just dominate that backfield. But if he's the pass catcher that we think he could be, yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and the 3 to hate just because of issues with injuries, suspensions. I don't think D Hop is it anymore. I think he's on the tail end of his career. I think he's
Where's he
kind of
being drafted?
right between
Hopkins.
3 and 4. So he's right around 4. It says 45th, at least for yours, but a
Yeah,
low 45th. Like I'm not high on that with D Hop. Same thing with Pittman. Pittman has nothing to do with injury
yeah,
related, but
I'm not there.
offense in Indianapolis, even with Matt Ryan, like I'm just people aren't afraid of the air threat from Matt Ryan anymore. They're just not. Like he can throw the ball, but he's not going to go for 350 each game like he used to. And Michael Pittman he's the sole wide receiver out there. Like he's their number one guy. It's no longer T.Y. Hilton. And he did decent, but I'm just not drafting him that high as my wide receiver 1 or even wide receiver 2. And the last, and I know for those that know, as much as I love my boys from the Bayou Bengals, I'm not taking Joe. Fresh off of an epidectomy injury, like he's gonna give you great value, but you could definitely pick a quarterback a little higher. If you're going quarterback that round, you could pick a better quarterback that's not coming off of an injury. He's not gonna have a
Yeah.
slip off year, but you got to understand he's coming back from an actual injury. Like
So
he's gonna take
Joe
him some time to recover.
Burrow is tail end of the 4th round, according to our projections, which it's not bad, but here's some names if you wait, right? Aaron Rodgers, middle of the 6th round. Is there that big of a difference between the two? Not
Not
huge.
really.
Dak Prescott in the 8th round. I mean, Joe Burrow's better, but are you upset if you got Dak Prescott?
Nope.
No. So, and then, Tom Brady, 8th round, your guy, Trey Lance, 9th round. So, like, there are guys that if you wait, you'll be fine with. And if you do draft Burrow where he's being drafted, you're passing up on guys like Waddle, Darren Waller, um, Josh Jacobs. I'm not big Josh Jacobs guy this year, but there are some names around Joe Burrow that's worth drafting. All right, so let's move on to the next section of the draft. At this point, I'm hoping that after the first 4 rounds, you have at least 2 running backs, a wide receiver. Maybe I would prefer 2 and 2, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs. Maybe you grab one of those tight ends at the top. But so in this section from 5 to 8, this is where I'm personally this is what my strategy is from 5 to 8. I'm grabbing my quarterback probably. I'm probably grabbing him somewhere around 6, maybe early 5th. I'm grabbing solid guys. So 5 through 8, I want guys that I can count on, and maybe one lottery ticket guy. So just looking in this range, guys that I feel pretty solid about, that I can count on, would probably be like Adam Thielen, not a sexy name. He had a couple. It's been a couple years since he's been great, but I feel like with a guy like that, he's going to have a lot of receptions. He's going to be solid. He's going to put up average numbers. I can start him every week as like a wide receiver 3 or maybe a wide receiver 2. So just like that's kind of my philosophy right here is like get guys I feel like I can start every week, and then maybe a lottery ticket guy like a Chris Godwin who's probably fallen a little bit because of his injury. Is that kind of what you're doing around this range, or are you doing something a little different?
I'm looking quarterback and solidifying my flex right now.
Okay.
I'm not thinking, wide receiver 2. Like you do need. It's weird that the flex position is different than wide receiver 2 because you're just like, oh, they're interchangeable. But you need to have a solid flex player because if you have decent wide receivers, like this is your secondary running back, secondary wide receiver, like you need that area to be filled. I don't know if you're frozen online. My bad. Did I freeze up? Okay.
You're fine.
You got to solidify that flex position. So like for me, it's quarterback and flex right here, right between like 5, 6, and 7, depending on who's there.
Are there any quarterbacks in this range that you'd be happy with? Like obviously, I'm drafting at the top of the 5th, sorry to cut you off, but if like I'm drafting the top of the 5th, the very end of the 4th round is projected Burrow and Lamar Jackson. Like if one of those guys slips to like mid to bottom of the 5th round, I'll grab them then. But outside of that, like I'm fine with grabbing Rodgers in the middle of the 6th. I'm fine with. I mean, I'll roll the dice with Russell Wilson with 7. I mean, I know you don't love the toddler runner, the infant runner, Kyler Murray, but he's there for grab. And if we talked right off the jump, like if you're in a league that rewards rushing touchdowns more than passing touchdowns,
you're gonna say
Jalen Hurts right there in the 5th round, he'll get you a ton of rushing touchdowns. So, that could be an option if that's your scoring.
For me, that's huge in this location, depending on, like I said, if you got your wide receiver 1, running back 1 taken care of, you have that strong flex. If you're in the 5th round and you have the opportunity to get a rushing quarterback, you know what I'm saying? Like you said, Lamar's available where you don't have to rely on 253 passing each game. You can rely on 200, 1 running, 1 rushing, 1 passing. Again, knowing the rules, especially if you got those quarterbacks that 4 points is going to be a passing touchdown. This is huge getting this style of quarterback in the 5th round where you're going to get, 2 to 250 passing and then 6 for rushing. You're essentially replacing that position with another running back and getting that style of quarterback this early in the 5th, 6th. That's beneficial for you significantly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of value in this range. There's going to be some bust here, but there is value. I like another guy of value is Jerry Jeudy, Denver, right? Because he's a guy who was highly touted out of college. I believe he was a 1st round pick, if I'm not mistaken, like maybe the middle of the 1st round picks. Hasn't really had an opportunity to flourish because they've had I forget their previous head coach name. He was a defensive coach, but with that and also having Drew Lock at quarterback, he really doesn't have an opportunity to flourish. Now that he has Russell Wilson, you probably going to see that skill set really show itself. And he's going, beginning of the 6th round. Again, this is one of those guys where I consider like a lottery ticket. At this range, if I swing and miss, I'm not killing myself. Jerry Jeudy could end up by being like a top 15 wide receiver, maybe top 10, but he could also be, ranked 40. So I think he's a guy with a lot of variance, a high floor, high ceiling. And that's what I'm looking in this range. Give me one guy with high floor, low ceiling. I'm sorry, high floor, low ceiling. And then give me maybe like 1 or 2 guys with like a high floor that I can count on.
Jerry Judy being one of them because of the subtraction of Tim Patrick. I was going that route anyway. So you kind of stole my thunder with that one, unfortunately. People might sleep on it, but I saw a message or a tweet that was saying, Arizona got killed in the trade for Brandon Cooks. This dude has produced every single year, no matter who his quarterback is. You're starting to believe that like it's him that's helping the quarterback position as opposed to vice versa. Because we all thought that, when he was in New England, it's like, oh, he wasn't utilized correctly. But he goes to Houston with Davis Mills as his quarterback, still put up over 1,010 touchdowns. Like, I think that's a hell of a pick. So, a high ceiling for him because he's going to get the workload that they need. And the little guy, Devin Singletary, I'm a big fan of his. I feel like his usage rate for Buffalo is always going to be. You think he's not going to get the goal line carries? He does. Like they don't take him off the field because he's fast. So I think that's another hit out of the park if you get that area 6-7. If you get to draft that style of running back 6th or 7th round, huge value for it. Someone I don't like, even though he's out in LA now. I'm not a fan of Allen Robinson. Never have been. I feel like he's got a great running ability, but like he doesn't produce on the field to get you down to the goal line, but he's not a goal line threat.
Yeah, the Allen Robinson thing I found to be interesting. He's going the beginning of the 6th. He hasn't really produced a ton in the past couple of years. I think this is more of a opportunity thing with them losing Robert Woods and then Odell Beckham being injured as well. And I don't think he's even on the team anymore. So I think it's like he's the wide receiver 2 on what should be a very explosive offense with Sean McVay. So maybe that's why people are drafting him high. I would probably shy away from that. A guy that I'm interested in, and I think this is one of those boomer bust types of players in this range, Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown. I know he's had his struggles in Baltimore with catching and not really producing as they hoped he would. But you alluded to earlier, they're going to be without Hopkins for 6 games, right? So Hollywood Brown's going to be their number 1 for at least 6 games, and there's not a hell of a lot of competition around him. So he's going to get opportunity. I mean, he had opportunity in Baltimore, but he's going to get more opportunity now in Arizona, and it's a new change of scenery. So again, it could be a lottery ticket to, getting 15 to 20 fantasy points a week, or it could be a guy that's getting, 3 catches. I'm not worried about taking some chances here just because hopefully in the first 4 rounds, I've built out a pretty solid, set of wide receivers and running backs where I can take swings and misses. There was a couple other guys I want to mention before we left this range. CEH, I know he's in a timeshare at this point and he's been disappointing, but that Chiefs offense is still going to be good. He was a first-round draft pick a couple of years back. They had high expectations. I mean, he's going mid-7. If you can get him in the 8th, early 8th, late 7th, and you need a running back, if you drafted a heavy wide receiver off the bat, he's worth a flyer. He could be just a solid guy that you can count on every week. There's one more guy I wanted to bring to you, but a guy I definitely want to avoid, and I'm surprised he's going so early. Maybe this draft projection will change over time. Rashad Penny is going like the first pick of the 6th round. You would think he's the de facto starter with Chris Carson retiring.
Just retiring, yep.
But they did draft in the beginning of the 2nd round, the Seahawks, that is, Kenneth Walker III from Michigan State. That dude was an absolute monster at Michigan State. He was a Heisman finalist, I believe. Really good running back. And if you're drafting a running back in the early 2nd round, you're drafting him to play.
Yeah.
So he's going to get a significant amount of carries. I would prefer Walker over Penny of the 2 because Penny also has an injury history as well. So I'd probably avoid drafting Penny and just wait to like the 8th round and get Kenneth Walker there. Anyone else that you want to comment on these first couple or 5 to 8 before we get into the Frizz's 5?
Only one name, just because of, again, the scenario, the situation. Granted, I think he's a better receiver. But Amari Cooper, unfortunately, I think people usually stick away from, Browns players. Have Deshaun Watson been there the first part of the season, I'd say this is a great area for him. Him not being there for 10 games, no, not a chance. I'm sorry. I don't mind, backup from New England. I can't remember his name now.
He's been bad.
Yeah, I don't mind him as a quarterback, But I'm not relying on wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 getting passes from Jacoby Brissett. Unfortunately, so that's a product of a situation. It's not a talent thing because I think had Deshaun Watson been there, he's 6, maybe even 5, depending on how their offense is going to run. But I'm not wasting wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 area on somebody that's not going to get big production until half the season's over.
Yeah. All right. So we've covered like the meat of the draft, rounds 1 through 8. The last section of the draft's kind of going to be like everything else. So it's like a lot of guys that could be lottery tickets that could kind of win you a league. But before we get into that, we're going to get to the hottest segment in all of podcasting. Are you ready, sir?
Oh boy.
Prepare yourselves for the greatest and most unique segment in podcast history. Let's rank some stuff with D. It's time for Frizz's 5.
Woo!
As always, a weekly segment, Frizz's 5. Our very own D Frizz gives us his top 5 of something. This week, what are we ranking, Darian?
So we had a hell of a commotion last week with ranking the cereals. I'm ready to go unhealthy today. Not saying the cereal was healthy, but we're going top 5 fast food joints for your boy Frizzy Frizz. All right, cracking the back on this one because I'm talking about give me all the gluttonous. When I'm starving and I need to go out and spend some bread, I'm just going to get that quick meal. Number 5. And again, we got to start it off as we started off every single
Can I do it? Can I do it?
Go ahead.
It's his 5, not your 5.
You were close, but you got to throw it in like it's like a food. It ain't your 5. It's my top 5. So we're going to start this up, baby. Number 5 might be because it's the boy in the South now. King of the South, Prince of the South, whatever you want to call him. But I'm going with Bojangles. But the chicken from Bojangles, whoo, miss me with KFC, miss me with Popeyes. Oh my Lord, they jumped quick, and they knocked out some heavy hitters. I won't lie to you, but man, I'm with me some Bojangles. It's bow time anytime. That's where I'm going if I want some chicken.
When I hear Bojangles, all I can think about is that rap song. It's like something about what was it? Got me like Bojangles. Something I don't know. I gotta find the name of the song.
Wrap around your ankles. Call that bitch Bojangles.
Yes, yes.
She got her hands up on her knees and her bows in her thigh. Yes. Yin Yang twins. Yep.
Yes.
But yes, I'm definitely going Bojangles number 5, man. That chicken is incredible. Number 4, Jersey Mike subs.
I will say, of all the sub places, Jersey Mike's is the superior one.
Top tier, baby. Top tier. The number 17 heavy hitter with the steak and cheese. Oh, I just had one over the weekend, so it might be just like a closeness bias. It just happened. But man, every time you order a steak and cheese from Jersey Mike's or an Italian grinder, they come out incredibly great. Like the bread is awesome.
Quiznos, like that was the big sub leader at one point.
They toast all their subs. Don't nobody like Quiznos.
What happened to Quiznos? Did you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Fan?
Nah, I'm not. Oh. I'm not. They I don't know if they toast all their subs, but all their commercials shows them toasting subs. I don't like toasted subs.
Okay.
What?
All right, number 3.
Number 3. Five Guys burgers and fries.
So I made my own top 5, and that is also my number 3.
That's what I like to hear. Five Guys, man. There's something about them burgers. They're all double cheeseburgers, which I absolutely love. You can get some with bacon, but to top it off, bro, them fries, those fries are incredible. I won't lie to you. They're not crunchy. That you just grab them all greasy and whatnot. You can see through the bag at the bottom, all grease. Just love it. That's me. Again, if I'm looking to just get fat, I need all the grease. Five Guys, that's what I'm going.
If you order a small fry at Five Guys, they just fill the bag with fries.
They're just like, nah, not today. We got to get rid of all these damn potatoes.
If you don't come home with diabetes, you're not doing it right.
Exactly. And speaking of, because this was the number 1 for a very large portion of my life, and they no longer are the number 1. But I'm feeling real good. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Oh, wow.
McDonald's is now my number 2.
That's a classic.
It is, man, and they were number 1 for a very large portion of my life. Like double quarter pounder with cheese. Like I used to get them shits when I was in high school. We used to have those gold cards. Used to buy one, get one. It was like incredible. Friday nights after football games, man, go to McDonald's, get you 2 sandwiches. Loved it. McDonald's fries, golden crisp. McDonald's chicken nuggets, incredible. Hell of a menu. So that's I wish they were number 2, but they are no. I mean, I wish they were number 1, but they are no longer that number. Number 1. Can I get a drum roll, please? The Reverend said itself. God says Sunday is his day. Sunday is for football. They may not serve food, but Monday through Saturday, Chick-fil-A is the number 1 fast food restaurant place of eating in the history of fast foods. There's something about that chicken. There's something about that bun. It's just buttered soft, but it's something about them waffle fries. It's the service. It don't matter if them boys or girls got 50 cars in the drive-thru. 5 minutes later, you got your meal. And they're not mad. They'll roll up to your whip like they're, it's Sonic or Rollerblades. They'll walk down the whole line. What is it that you like? Take your order, swipe of the card, even after they're pissed because they're sweating, dripping, they're as hot as a motherfucker out there. They just say the best words ever. Thank you. We really appreciate your business. Or the best thing of all time, my pleasure. Like, it's just the best. It's the best, man. It ain't just the food. It's everything that's encompassed with it.
So you have the privilege of having many Chick-fil-A's in your area. There's nothing up here. It's a little barren for the Chick-fil-A. The Polynesian sauce, though, dog, so good.
Polynesian, the Chick-fil-A, man. It's just everything that they have to offer, man. Hey, they're closed on Sunday, so everybody can watch football. So I don't mind it. But Chick-fil-A, that's the reason why they closed on Sundays. Oh, there's something about Chick-fil-A, man. I don't know how it got there so quickly, but it just is the number 1 place to go eat fast food. There's something about it that makes you think that it's healthy. Like it's not at all. But like part of you is just like, but it's chicken. It's like, it's God's chicken.
It's just chicken. It's all good. There's bread, whatever. I got passionate about this one. I made a top 5. I was curious how close it was to your top 5. I'm going to throw a different graphic for this one. This is the Trudeau's truth. Number 5, I had Papa John's. I feel like it's the best chain pizza place, right? It's solid. They are, they're a little racist, so they're only number 5 on my list.
Wait, man, something about the LGBTQ community with Chick-fil-A. Dog, we won't go down that road. So
my list is real hateful. I got 2 of them on there. Number 4, like we had a debate pre-show. Does this count as fast food? Like the ice cream joints, Cold Stone, by far the best ice cream, dude. They make it fresh right in front of you, so good. I'm with you on 3. Same number 3. Five Guys, you highlighted it. I'm surprised number 2 didn't make your list. This is like close to being.
I know where you're going.
Yeah, Chipotle, man. Yep, Chipotle is so damn good, man. Like I could eat Chipotle every day.
And this is, we won't do the hot take machine or anything like that, but I don't mess with Chipotle. Really don't.
Is it the neurovirus?
It's just no, it's just the food. Like I'm not thinking of going to Chipotle. I really don't. Like I'm not a bowl kind of person. Soft burrito. That's just not my thing.
Okay.
Heard they got good food. The one time that I went to Chipotle, they served beer, so like that was a positive. But that's about it.
That's cool. And then number 1, again, I gotta go back to the hate. Well, Chick-fil-A, they're not fans of the LGBT.
They are not, unfortunately.
So I got the racist one at the bottom and the
top it off like a nice little sandwich.
All right, let's wrap this thing up. So we're gonna finish this up with the last. It's like and all essentially with this the last segment, kind of rounds 9 through the end of the draft. There's not going to be a ton to talk about here. This is more of like lottery ticket time, right? Because none of these guys were like. We're not counting on any of these guys to be great and contribute every week as wide receiver 2. This is kind of like, hey, maybe I can stash this guy on my bench and he blows up after week 3 or 4. So I'll let you take the board first. Is there any player, just name off a few that you like? You go one at a time. that you feel like could be a sleeper that could be a lottery ticket for somebody?
This isn't a bias, but I'm a big fan of the way he played when he was at Ohio State. Chris Olave. I think that's one of the better pickups for a wide receiver, depending on where you're at. Obviously, at the end of the draft, I'm in a lot of keeper leagues, so like my end of the draft is like not even for like helping me out this season. It's for helping me out in the next season. So like my selections might be tainted with that because I think to me he could be a wide receiver one next year. So I'm definitely thinking that way. Same thing with like Sky Moore, another wide receiver out of Kansas City.
Why are people so high on Sky Moore? He was like the 8th wide receiver taken. Is it just because he's in Kansas City?
Well, he's a very fast receiver out of Kansas City. We see what Kansas City does with very fast wide receivers.
They've had fast wide receivers before that just haven't done anything, like Pringle.
Yeah. I think Scott Moore is more fit to their offense, a little bit shorter of a wide receiver, not, your 6'1", 6'2", long-legged, long stride guy. It's more of like the quick dash. Like that's more of like what they're in for. So I'm a big fan of those two players. You know what I mean? If you're looking deep into it, again, I typically am looking for people that are either rehash or some type of keeper for the next league, for the next season. Somebody that, and this is again where the bias comes in, good value for the location, but 12th, 13th round, depending on how many there are. Jarvis Landry, he's a hell of a slot receiver, and Jameis Winston takes advantage of his weapons. If he plays the way he did the first six games last season, he spread the ball out. There really wasn't a wide receiver one. Like we saw one week where Marquez Callaway was the wide receiver to get for New Orleans, and then the next week it wasn't because he spread the ball out differently. Juice is going to get the ball decent amount, not just in passing the ball, but he's going to either pass the ball himself or he's going to catch those running back plays around the goal line. He did that a lot in Miami. He did it a lot in Cleveland.
Yeah, and then if Michael Thomas is, we're unsure about his status at this point with his hamstring. If he misses time, I think that'd probably bump Landry to wide receiver 1. So there's going to be opportunity there. He's not a bad guy to have. For me, a guy like Landry is a bit too old as like a flyer. I want more of like a young guy who has never done it before that could be like just blow out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
One guy that I have that I'm interested in is a guy named, and I don't know if anyone knows of him, Dameon Pierce in Houston. Granted, like Houston's offense is pretty bad. Davis Mills is their quarterback. So Dameon Pierce, I believe he's a rookie running back. Their other running backs on the roster include Rex Burkhead and I knew it earlier. I'm drawing a blank. But right now, the thing about Dameon Pierce is he's likely to be the week 1 starter at this point at Houston.
Yep.
And if you can get a starting running, if you can get a starting running back who is very young in a rookie year in the 11th round, it's like the perfect flyer because if he ends up by being in a committee, you spent an 11th round pick on him. If he ends up by flourishing and becoming the lead back there, it's Marlon Mack's the other guy. So it's Marlon Mack, Dameon Pierce, and Rex Burkhead. We know like the Texans know what Marlon Mack is and what Rex Burkhead is. So, you could get a guy who, again, it's a lottery pick. You can get a guy who just comes out of nowhere, wins the job, becomes the regular starter that gets, 60 to 70% of the carries in their backfield. And he's a big boy. I think he's like 225. So he's a powerful runner, going to get goal line carries. I like him a lot in that range. This guy's not as like a young guy because I like to go young, but kind of an unproven commodity who just got paid in the offseason. Christian Kirk got, I think, $75 million from the Jaguars. They didn't give him that money to not be part of that offense. I believe he's going to be their top pass catching threat, if not tied for one of the top pass catching threats. They're going to be better under Doug Peterson, right? And I anticipate that Trevor Lawrence will take a leap forward. So Christian Kirk is going around middle of round 10. That's a great wide receiver flyer. If you already have 2 wide receivers, 3 wide receivers, he could be a guy maybe who slots into your flex. If you need a flex player, he could be a wide receiver 3. And best case scenario is you don't need to start him. And he's like that last guy on your bench. If he ends up by making huge plays out in Jacksonville. Boom, there you go. So like, I think those two guys are relatively unproven. Could be lottery tickets. In this range, I'm definitely going to avoid people who are low, like the floor guys, like guys who are just a floor setter. So like, I don't know, like an out. Trying to think of a guy who's like a good floor. Like, all right, Nelson Aguilar is going 2 rounds ahead of. Yeah, he's going a round ahead of Christian Kirk. Like Nelson Aguilar, like he is what he is. New England, he'll get some passes, but like he's not going to be a breakout candidate likely. So give me someone who is boom or bust here, and I'm just going to hope for the boom. And if by week 3, if by week 3 Damian Pierce is in a 3-way committee and getting 20% of the carries, I can just cut him at that point, right? I spent an 11th round pick on him, so that's what I'm doing here. Trying to see if there's anyone else. If you see anyone else in this range you want to comment on, chime in.
I got a big name. I mean, not big name, but we mentioned him multiple times. Just as like the wide receiver instead of his actual name, George Pickens.
Oh yes. Where's he going? Again, he's going late.
It's like 13th. I'm pretty sure, or like around the 13th round.
Yep. Yeah, that's a scenario where, like we just said, like if you're going to draft someone this late, draft the high upside guy. 2 picks after him is Sammy Watkins. Sammy Watkins is not going to flourish this like out of nowhere. Draft the rookie who has a high ceiling.
I'm a big fan of Pickens just because of the way he played when he was at Georgia. I think he's an excellent wide receiver. And again, rookie wide receivers from the SEC have dominated. We've seen it year in and year out over the past 3 seasons. We saw it start with Jefferson. We saw it, go with Chase, and then another Alabama Waddle, SEC. You had Devontae Smith, SEC. George Pickens, again, part of that product of they're playing the best talented DBs in the SEC. They transfer over into the NFL, and they're still able to do the same thing. I did have another name. I didn't want to go in that deep on Pickens, but DJ Chark. Another wide receiver that, again, he started off. Let's see here. 13th round.
Oh wow!
And yeah, I think for what Detroit, granted, Jared Goff ain't it, but Chark is a hell of a value. Another LSU guy, but again, this is just the way that they show up. He did decent when he was down in Jacksonville. He had a couple span of games where like he was the number 1. And if you're able to get a receiver this late or like, fill up your bench or fill up a secondary flex position, like that's not a bad get, especially because Galladay is no longer out there. Galladay is in New York. So like there's really no true number 1 in Detroit right now. I think Marvin Williams is always hurt. So it's like this is a flyer, young receiver. You get a chance. And like you said, you get to week 4 or 5, you see he's getting 5 to 8 points a game. You cut him. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I want to test your willingness to take flyers late. We'll get out here after this. So you talked about Pickens and how you liked him. He could be like a lottery ticket, right? Like, and we talked about maybe taking the lottery tickets this late over kind of like low or high floor guys. So I'm gonna name off wide receivers that are close in range, and I want to know if you'd rather have Pickens or this other guy. So like 4 or 5 picks ahead of Pickens. Julio Jones. Would you rather have Julio Jones or Pickens in that spot?
Pickens.
I think I'm with you. Jarvis Landry or Pickens? I know it's tough because you're a Saints guy.
No. If by week 1 they've made the not backup, but the kid from Pitt, wide receiver.
We're talking about like at the draft, like you don't have any foresight.
Oh, okay. Got
if you had a draft today without knowing who the starter would be,
Pickens. Yeah.
Devontae Parker or Pickens?
Parker.
Really? You think he is that much upside, huh?
I think they're gonna force the ball to Parker in New England.
That'll be an interesting situation to see how that unfolds. For sure. All right. One last name I want to throw out there is Chase Claypool. I like him early 12th round. I know he has a ton of talent. I'm just going to hope that Big Ben was holding him back.
The thing is, and I said this every single year, he takes so many hits. not only does he take hits, he hits the ground so hard that he takes himself out of games. So like I shy away from Chase. Love the physicalness behind it, but like watch his games and you'll see like there are times where he's dominating first quarter, something happens, and then you don't see him until the third quarter. It's because he dove in, the end of the first to make a catch, hit the ground, knocked the wind out of himself. Now he's gonna sit for a quarter and a half. It's like you don't see it in the box score if you're just looking at his points, but you watch the actual game, you're like, Jesus Christ, like every game he's sitting on the sideline in key situations because he hurt himself.
Was it Chase or Juju that was dancing when they were trying to hurry up and snap the ball in Pittsburgh?
I don't know. Juju was hurt last year, so I don't think it was him.
It was Chase.
I remember Juju stole his bike back in Detroit. Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot to unpack. A solid hour, 15 minutes of fantasy football talk and some fast food in between. But I hope that what we did could at least help some people navigate their draft. Again, like I wouldn't take what we say as gospel. I don't think anyone really, any of the fantasy people like Matthew Berry, whatever, none of their words gospel. I think it's just philosophy behind how you approach the draft for sure. And last thing before we get out of here, we said it on the front end, I want to say it on the back end. If you're watching live on Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube, please find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Just follow the podcast. And again, if you're listening to the podcast, we do both. Check out the live stream. That way you can kind of interact with the show. The preferred method, catch us on Twitch. It's at dfrizzy_frizz5 with 2 Z's on those Z's. So again, thanks for watching. Another episode of Frizz and the Grizz in the books. Peace out.
Deuces.